Okay, we've now opened up the sales driver planning story post-COVID, and we're now going to begin looking at our sales volumes. As you can see in the top left-hand corner, we have our work task. So this is where we clicked on from the calendar. And once I've completed this task, I can press submit, and that will follow the workflow process and request approval for this task. We're in what we call a SAP Analytics Cloud story. Very similar layout to an Excel spreadsheet, which is in tabular form. And we're currently on the sales history page, but you can see the various tabs going across. And what we're going to do today is plan our volume, our sales volumes, and then using list prices and discounts and purchase costs, we're going to calculate our P&L for the forecast by customer and product. So we're currently in March 2021, and we're going to forecast the remainder of the year. So if I just click onto my gross margin report, you can see our sales quantity and our revenue exists for the first 3 months of the year. So this is our actuals. And then for the remainder of the year, we haven't got any revenue or quantity or purchase costs or delivery costs. And we're going to forecast these out based on our volumes. So we're going to create our volumes and then run a calculation to calculate our P&L. And that P&L will be available by product and by customer. So let's just click back to the beginning, click on sales history. So at the moment, we're looking at the graph which we saw on our homepage, which is sales units or sales volumes for the actuals. And the past year has seen the COVID, so we recognize these numbers. And if I just track back at the bottom, we can see our trend going back to 2014. And this is our historical data with now familiar peaks in Easter and December and a trough in August, but a general increase or trend upwards in our sales. So we're just going to drop here, and then we can see in 2020 the effects of the 3 lockdowns, leaving us at 752 sales volumes in March 2021. Now what we also have is a scenario which we have run where we predicted what the actuals would have been if we didn't have COVID. And I'm just going to graph this at the moment. So effectively the orange line up until March 2020, both the blue and the orange being orange and blue are the same for the actuals. And then into 2020, the blue is the actuals as COVID, but we've run a model and we run a model which has predicted what the sales would have been if we didn't have COVID and we're working under normal market conditions. So through machine learning, the application has run a predictive forecast based on a history. And what we're going to do now is run a similar predictive forecast from March 2021 to the remainder of the year. So I'm just going to go on to forecast sales units. And this is where we'll run our predictive forecast. Just want to quickly show you this screen. So here now we're allowing ourselves to plan at a very granular level. You'll see the products on the left and the periods in a table to the right. I can just simply click on and drill down to a lower level product. So I'm just going to go here a minute. And you'll see that we've got a full product listing for frozen produce. So we've got some chips and fries, and then the individual SKUs at the bottom. And we can see the volumes for January, February and March. A couple of filters at the top also allow us to plan for individual customers. If I just click on that, I can see all our customers. And if I just untick that, if we just want to see the hospitality and restaurants and quick service restaurants, actually McDonald's, as an example, you can see that the numbers would then update. For this scenario today, I'm just going to do total customers. But we've basically got forecasting by individual SKU and at the customer level. So now I'm going to run a predictive model to predict the sales volumes going forward. I simply click on the cell, I go to my toolbar and I run predictive forecast. And I've got a couple of choices here. First of all, where do I want to predict it from? So I'm actually going to predict it from April out to 2022-08. I've got some advanced options now. I could have a linear regression forecast, or I could have a smoothing, so that I see the impact of Easter, summer and winter or December on our sales. I'm going to click on the smoothing option. Now, which data do I want my forecast to be based on? I could pick actuals, but that would include 2020 COVID. And actually, I want to predict my sales going forward in a recovery mode with COVID. So I'm actually going to pick this. And this was the orange line on the graph, which took out the impact of COVID. So I'm making a prediction assuming we will return to growth in a post-COVID environment. And I'm just going to run that in preview. So the machine now is going away and calculating at every individual SKU and customer what the forecast will be. And if we just look at this a little bit closely, we've got the history, then a general upward climb in the trend, and we've taken out the impact of COVID. So if we look at this, the dotted line are future sales, and the gap is the upper confidence level and a lower. So it's the degree of accuracy. And you can see in this case, we've got a very accurate forecast quality 5 out of 5, as there's very much a trend in the movement of the data because we removed the impact of COVID. So I'm happy with that number. And now I'm going to save it back to the database. So I'm just going to go into OK it. And now we'll see the numbers being written to the database and will now appear in the table of data. And here we are. The cells which have been updated have now changed to yellow. And if we compared it to March, you can see almost like a 25% jump in sales because we've ignored the impact of COVID and we've used the history to predict it going forward. If we're not happy with this volume forecast, we can amend it manually very easily. So I'm just going to pick alternative chips and fries, which are open. And if I wanted to increase that to 100 from 65, you can see that the numbers have now updated and disaggregated down the hierarchy. This is what we call top-down planning. So if I wanted to put an overall increase on all products, I could do it at the top level and push it down. So I'm just going to increase for 100 by 5%, as you see me key it in. The numbers will go up to 105 and that will be disaggregated down. So I'm able to adjust my forecast. I'm just going to return to my sales history graph now to see visually what these numbers look like. So again, we have the blue actuals for COVID, the scenario we would expect without COVID, so if sales had continued to move for 2020. I now want to look forward past March 2021 to see our forecast. So I'm just going to click the budget. I'm going to extend my time graph, and we can now see that the green going forward from the blue actuals is shot up in April and has then continued on a path very similar to the orange line going forward, but an overall uplift. So if I just look at July 2022, over 1 million cases, and we compared it to the previous year, it's around the 900, so we've got a general increase. So very visually we can see what our forecast has done. The next step now is to cash that forecast up into a forecast P&L.